Welcome back to Eligible Monster, where we go over discussions, lore, and deep dives into some of your favorite storylines within video games, be it a video game, the movie adaptation, or the plot to the game itself, allowing you to catch up and understand your favorite characters. Today we're going to be restarting a lot of our coverage of the lore and characters and just mystery of the Resident Evil franchise. And since, Resident Evil 3 just came out recently, we thought it'd be fun to dive into the character Jill Valentine as a whole, telling you her story from beginning to end, so that those of you who have just started playing Resident Evil 3, you understand where she's from and where she's going to be going. She's a character with a long storied history within the franchise, and one of my personal favorite characters of the franchise, so of course, we need to cover her. Born of French and Japanese descent, Jill Valentine would go on to join the US Army early in her life at some point in the 90s. While it is unknown what MOS she served, eventually she would gain the attention of Delta Force, and she'd become one of the only females at the time to gain Delta training. She would specialize in bomb disposal and would also become known as the Master of Unlocking due to her expert skills with lockpicks. Upon exiting the military, Jill was recruited by Albert Wesker as a part of his Special Tactics and Rescue Service. Based in Raccoon City, the STARS unit was made up of military veterans with special skills. Jill proved herself quite capable and would eventually go on to serve in the STARS Alpha team, led by Captain Wesker himself. 1998. Raccoon City is now plagued with a rash of deaths and mutilations within the mountains and wilderness that surround the city. Investigations into the deaths seems to point to either an animal attack or possible cannibalism. STARS Bravo team is deployed into the Arklay Mountains in search of the hideout of the perpetrators. When the team goes missing, Alpha team is deployed the following day. Quickly spreading out to search the area, Alpha team finds Bravo team's chopper downed and the pilot is mutilated before they can radio for help. Alpha team is assaulted by a group of wild dogs, and team member Joseph Frost is killed. Watching from the sky, Alpha team's pilot, Brad Vickers, is terrified and flies away, leaving the team to die. The rest of the team flees into the woods, eventually discovering and taking shelter inside of a vast mansion that was just conspicuously out in these woods. Alpha team splits up inside, investigating the mansion. Within, they face the undead and creatures that have been mutilated by a strange virus known as the T-virus. Jill learns of the experiments conducted by Umbrella, an international pharmaceutical company, and how they were creating bioweapons. The team also discovers that Albert Wesker is a traitor who works for Umbrella and was brought in to retrieve research and kill the STARS members. Alpha team fights their way through the mansion and the secret labs that lie beneath it, finally facing off against Umbrella's strongest bioweapon, a creature known as the Tyrant. The team escapes when Brad Vickers finally returns, flying them to safety as the mansion explodes behind them. Returning to the city, the survivors of the mansion didn't know who to trust. It seemed that everyone was in Umbrella's pocket, as they were the major donors to the city, including the Raccoon City Police Department. The surviving members of STARS decided that they needed to split up and try to solve this, with most of the team heading to Europe to investigate Umbrella themselves. Jill and Brad opted to stay in Raccoon City and continue the investigation into Umbrella's dealings there. However, Police Chief Brian Irons suspended her from the RPD and orders her under house arrest. Brad and Jill continue to do what they can, but their investigation is dead in the water. So, 2 months go by, and the water supply of Raccoon City is contaminated by a sample of T-virus, and horror quickly spreads throughout the city. As the city descends into chaos and death, the Raccoon City Police Department isn't prepared to face off against the growing hordes of the undead. Other bioweapons either escape from Umbrella's secret lab beneath the city or are dropped into the city to test their combat effectiveness on the survivors. Wishing to silence Jill Valentine for her investigation, Umbrella launches the Nemesis, which has been programmed to hunt down the remaining STARS members within the city. The creature first attacks Jill in her apartment, but she manages to escape. Fighting through the undead, she eventually meets up with Carlos and his team of the Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service members. They've been sent into the city to aid in the rescue of survivors. Jill works alongside the UBCS to restart the city's subway system while dodging zombies and the ever-present Nemesis. While fighting her way through the city, Jill seemingly kills the Nemesis, but she's also infected by its special strand of the T-virus. Luckily, Carlos is able to find a cure within Spencer Memorial Hospital. When Jill finally comes around, she follows Carlos to the Umbrella secret lab, where they hope to find more of the vaccine and stop the incoming missiles, which are meant to destroy the city and all of its evidence. Beneath the city, Jill must face off against the Nemesis once more and the traitorous UBCS member, Nikolai. But the cure is destroyed and Jill and Carlos manage to barely escape as the city is vaporized behind them. As they fly away, Jill vows that Umbrella's end has begun. We now skip to 2003. Both Jill Valentine and Chris Redfield have become members of a paramilitary anti-biohazard group known as the Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance, working against Umbrella around the world. Reports have come in about attacks that were similar to the original mansion incident, and Jill and Chris are dispatched to investigate. Deploying in a small village in the greater Caucasus area, they discover that it was already overrun by T-virus zombies. The two find a young girl named Anna. Escaping, they're met by Albert Wesker, and Wesker manages to evade capture by Jill and Chris, and he manages to steal evidence that Umbrella is using the village and a nearby plant to produce and spore BOWs. We now jump to 2005. Bioterrorism has spread throughout the world. Jill is partnered with Parker and dispatched to investigate the city of Terra Grigia, a floating city where dead sea creatures have begun to wash up. During their investigation, a vial of the T-Abyss virus is discovered, and eventually the two would travel to the Queen Zenobia, a former cruise ship that is used by the terrorist group known as Veltro to test the T-Abyss virus. Fighting their way through the ship and its abominations, Jill and Parker would manage to get a transmission to the head of the BSAA. Chris Redfield and his partner would be dispatched, and together the group would discover that there is a traitor within the ranks of the Federal Bioterrorism Commission. They've been working with Veltro to create the T-Abyss virus. After fighting their way through the ships and destroying the T-Abyss outbreak, the head of the FBC is arrested for bioterrorism and treason. The BSAA is reorganized to be a direct specialized unit within the United Nations. 2006. Jill and Chris are deployed after receiving intel on the location of Dr. Oswald Spencer, former CEO of Umbrella and an individual that is currently hiding from the global manhunt. However, after arriving at the Spencer estate, they discover him dead, and the castle is overrun by BOWs. The two face off against Wesker once again, and Jill gives her life to save Chris by throwing herself and Wesker out a window. The rescue team searched the cliffs beneath the castle, but they discovered neither body. As it turns out, Jill and Wesker were both still alive, with Wesker having stolen Jill and placing her body into a comatose state in a secret tri-cell lab in Africa. Wesker began his research into the Ouroboros project and the infected Jill. However, the vaccine that she originally received after being infected by the Nemesis had made her immune to everything that was going on. Her body was now creating antibodies against all of these viruses, which made her useless for further research. Instead, Wesker used her as a part of the P-30 project, which created super soldiers that were easy to control. In 2009, after Tricell and Wesker had begun the Ouroboros project, Jill was dispatched to protect Ricardo Irving from the BSAA's investigations into the area. Irving was a weapons dealer, working alongside Tricell to sell bioweapons to the militia. Eventually, Jill would be forced to fight against the two investigating agents, Chris Redfield and Shiva Alamar. Chris would eventually break Wesker's hold over Jill, ripping the device off of her chest that was controlling her. She tells him to leave her behind, as she is weak, and they need to stop Wesker and the Tricell Corporation. She would be picked up by another BSAA agent, Captain Josh Stone. The two would travel to the Tricell tanker that would allow Wesker to escape, and she tells Chris of a special drug that Wesker needs to take, and that an overdose could harm him. In the final fight, she tosses the RPG to both Chris and Shiva, the RPG that they used to finally kill Wesker. Returning to the BSAA, Jill is kept under observation and testing after her exposure to several viruses, but she can't wait to get back out into that field. So, that is a recap of everything that happened to Jill Valentine. If you enjoyed this, let me know in the comments down below what character you want us to cover next inside of the entire Resident Evil fan base, the entire Resident Evil lore, and all this kind of stuff. Also, I'm debating redoing our entire coverage of the original game, as we now have much better equipment. We have much better, I'd like to say that I can do the storylines a little bit better. Overall, let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for your support. Don't forget to subscribe to EM and tell me more stuff that you want over here. You can also find me over on Twitch at twitch.tv/eligiblemonster. Sundays guaranteed, sporadically throughout the week. Please go follow that. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you next time right here.